Nathan Rhodes sat still in his rented sedan, fingers tapping nervously on the steering wheel. In front of him stood the red brick building, one of the most problematic branches in the restaurant chain he had built over the past 15 years. The flickering neon sign mirrored the silent problems festering inside. Harvest Table, the name that once filled Nathan's heart with pride, was now keeping him awake at night. 15 years ago, he had opened his first restaurant with nothing but student loans and a simple dream: to create a place where both customers and staff felt truly at home, a real family. But now, among 38 locations spread across the country, this one was a flare of instability in an otherwise calm forest. 62% turnover in just 6 months, he muttered, eyes fixed on the restaurant's front door, and a 20% drop in repeat customers. The cold numbers cut deep into the pride of a man who had dedicated half his life to setting the gold standard for hospitality. The internal audit teams he had sent returned with shallow reports: equipment maintenance issues, lack of training, the usual growing pains for a location not even 2 years old. But his gut told him something far darker was hiding behind the restaurant's friendly facade. When the third manager abruptly resigned without explanation, leaving behind only a note citing personal reasons, Nathan knew it was time to step in himself. He had no other choice. It was time to resume the role he once kept hidden. An undercover observer, he adjusted the wire-rimmed glasses, nothing more than a decorative disguise, and smoothed his newly grown beard, part of the meticulous disguise he had spent weeks preparing. Thrift store clothes, a carefully crafted fake identity. Nathan was now a wandering insurance adjuster from the Midwest. The out-of-state rental car added credibility. Even his own mother wouldn't recognize him in this form. "It's time," he whispered as he opened the car door. Under the soft yellow glow spilling from the restaurant's large windows, the exterior still held the warm charm typical of a harvest table. Wooden signage, neatly trimmed landscaping, the comforting aura of a family dinner. But Nathan noticed everything: weeds creeping through the decorative gravel, smudges on the glass doors, and burnt-out bulbs by the entrance. Inside, a young hostess with a bright smile but tired eyes greeted him. "Welcome to Harvest Table. Table for one tonight?" "Yes, just me. If possible, something quiet. It's been a long day," Nathan replied, deliberately adjusting his tone to sound lighter, less authoritative, unlike the commanding voice of a CEO. "Of course, right this way." As she led him through the dining room, he took in every detail like a slow-motion film. The restaurant wasn't crowded, unusual for a Thursday night. The background music was slightly too loud. Empty glasses sat abandoned on several tables, and the signature bread baskets, which were supposed to be served the moment guests sat down, were missing from multiple occupied tables. She seated him at a corner booth, perfect for observing the entire floor. "Your server Elena will be with you shortly," she said, before hurrying off. Nathan leaned back in his seat, taking in the tension that seemed to hang in the air like invisible smoke. The staff didn't move with the rhythm and flow he had instilled in his training programs. Instead, they navigated the floor like it was a minefield. Nervous glances, hushed conversations cut short, smiles that never reached their eyes. There was fear here, hidden beneath forced hospitality. A few minutes later, a woman in her early 30s approached. "Hi there, welcome to Harvest Table. I'm Elena and I'll be taking care of you tonight," she said, offering a tired but genuine smile. "I'll have a water and a glass of your house red, please," Nathan responded, his eyes studying her carefully. In that moment, it became clear. This wasn't just a restaurant in trouble. This was a place where trust had eroded, where the cracks were beginning to show. And worst of all, no one here seemed to feel safe enough to speak the truth. Elena was exactly the kind of employee Nathan valued most, experienced enough to handle anything, yet still deeply compassionate, even beneath her fatigue. She shouldn't just be waiting tables. With her skill set, She should have been on the fast track to management long ago. Coming right up, Elena said with a smile, gently placing the menu in front of him. Tonight's special is herb-crusted salmon with roasted vegetables. But, between you and me, she lowered her voice slightly, the chicken piccata is the safer bet. She returned with the wine, and Nathan took a measured sip, nodding in approval. Not bad at all. I wasn't sure what to expect. It's actually my first time at a harvest table. Elena blinked in surprise. Really? They're everywhere these days. The founder had a really great vision when he started. Something flickered across her face. Maybe regret, maybe sorrow. Nathan caught it, subtle but unmistakable. Sounds like you've been with the company for a while? He asked casually. This August marks 5 years, she said, a flash of pride appearing briefly before fading. Started at the downtown location. Transferred here when this one opened. Sounds like you enjoyed it. Elena's smile faltered. She glanced around, then leaned in slightly, her voice lower. It used to be different. The original locations. They were really something. Great places to work. Great food. But now, she straightened up quickly, sliding her professional mask back on. Would you like to order now or need a few more minutes? I'll take your recommendation. The chicken sounds perfect. Good choice, she said, jotting it down. I'll get that started for you. Throughout the meal, Nathan continued to engage Elena, sprinkling in questions about the neighborhood and sharing a few fabricated anecdotes from his fictional job as a traveling adjuster. Little by little, Elena relaxed. Her true personality began to shine through. A dry wit, an impressive knowledge of food, and a maternal instinct as she gently guided the younger servers. When she returned with dessert, a slice of the chocolate bourbon cake from the original harvest table menu, Nathan made a calculated move to pierce the final barrier. You know, he said casually, I've been thinking about applying here. All this travel gets tiring, and this place seems warm, stable. Elena froze. Something flashed across her eyes. Alarm, protectiveness, perhaps even guilt. She hesitated, placing the fork down on the table instead of handing it to him. Look, her voice dropped. You seem like a good guy. If you're really thinking about switching jobs, she paused, choosing her words carefully, you might want to look somewhere else. Nathan's heart began to pound. What had started as a hunch was hardening into a terrifying truth. That's strange, he said softly. The ads online looked pretty appealing. Good benefits, clear advancement opportunities. Elena let out a laugh, but there was no humor in it. That's what they told all of us. But she lowered her head. This place is a trap. You think you're moving forward, but you end up standing in the same spot. Nathan felt a chill run through his entire body. His hand, still holding his water glass, froze midair. In Elena's eyes, there was no longer just exhaustion. There was the raw truth of years drained of energy, hope, and trust. There was no doubt anymore. This wasn't just about poor training or bad management. The restaurant he had built to bring joy and opportunity had become the kind of place people warned strangers to stay away from. Quietly. I really appreciate your honesty, he said, trying to keep his voice calm, even as his mind was racing with a storm of thoughts. I shouldn't have said that, Elena replied quickly, the fear returning to her eyes. Forget I said anything. Please, just enjoy your dessert. She walked away quickly, leaving Nathan alone at the table, staring at the slice of chocolate cake, once his pride and joy. It was a dessert he had perfected in his mother's kitchen, the very recipe that helped make Harvest Table famous. Now it tasted like a bitter memory. He had come expecting to find a few policy errors, maybe a weak manager or two. Instead, what he had uncovered was the wreckage of a dream gone wrong. A place where the very people he wanted to uplift were now trapped in a system that drained them a little more each day. Nathan Rhodes, founder and CEO of Harvest Table Restaurants, sat there, under deep cover, and with a broken heart. But he knew one thing with certainty. This journey had only just begun. The next night, Nathan returned to Harvest table. He asked to sit in Elena's section again. He had spent the entire day holed up in his hotel room, taking notes, reviewing company policies, and trying to figure out how the vision he started with had been so completely twisted. Tonight, he didn't just need to feel, he needed the truth. As he stepped into the restaurant for the second time, Nathan immediately noticed things he had missed the day before. The manager's cold, hawk-like eyes never left the staff. A middle-aged man with a stern face that always seemed to be calculating guilt, watching for someone to slip up. And when he approached, staff instinctively recoiled, shoulders hunched, steps slowed, smiles vanished, as if by reflex. The air felt suffocating, stretched taut like a guitar string about to snap. No one said it out loud, but fear had woven itself into every corner of the room like an invisible smog. "Back so soon?" Elena's voice broke through the tension, genuine surprise in her tone. "That chicken last night was too good to pass up." Nathan smiled, keeping up the appearance of a cheerful traveler. "And I'm still apartment hunting, so restaurants are my only option for dinner." Elena relaxed slightly, nodding. "Well, welcome back. Same drink as yesterday." As she walked away, Nathan turned his full attention to the restaurant, observing with the eyes of a seasoned investigator. The tip jar at the bar was nearly full, yet the bartender looked visibly uncomfortable every time a customer added a tip to their credit card. Moments later, the manager would sweep in and collect the money, without a word, without a thank you. Worse still, Nathan watched as a few employees accepted cash tips from customers, only to quietly deposit them into a locked box behind the hostess stand. No one said a thing. It was routine. When Elena brought out his meal, Nathan decided to push the conversation further. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday. About this place being a trap." Elena froze, a flash of panic in her eyes. "I shouldn't have said that." "Please forget it. Actually, I'd really like to know more," Nathan said gently. "Remember, I told you I was thinking about applying here. I need to know what I'm walking into." Elena stayed silent, glancing at her watch. "My break's in 15 minutes, if you're serious. I could use some fresh air." 17 minutes later, Nathan found her sitting alone on a worn bench behind the restaurant, a half-eaten sandwich in her hand. "I only have 10 minutes, she said, without looking at him. "And I'm risking my job just by talking to you." I appreciate that," Nathan replied softly, sitting down beside her. "So, what's really going on here?" Elena sighed. A deep, weighted exhale that carried the weariness of years gone unheard. "This place is designed to squeeze every drop of effort out of us for the lowest possible cost," she began. "They cap us at 29 hours a week, just low enough that they don't have to give us benefits. But the workload? It's like 35 or 40 hours, so we end up working unpaid overtime every day just to keep up." "And the tips?" Nathan asked, recalling the locked box. "That's the cleverest scam of all," Elena said bitterly. "They say all tips go into a pool that gets divided at the end of the month. Sounds fair, right? But when the time comes, there's always some excuse. Admin fees, losses, performance penalties. Each of us ends up getting maybe 20% of what the customers actually leave. The rest just vanishes." Nathan felt his stomach twist in disgust. "Why do people stay?" Elena looked him straight in the eye. Behind her gaze were all the unseen burdens. Student loans, aging parents, sick children, rising healthcare costs. The kinds of responsibilities that crush even the strongest spirits. "They feed us just enough hope to keep us tethered," she said quietly. "Quarterly bonuses that never come, management training that's always postponed, and the worst part, they make us think it's our fault." She paused, swallowing hard. "If I just smiled more, worked faster, tried harder, maybe I'd finally be noticed. But eventually you realize no matter how hard you try, nothing's going to change. And by then, you're too exhausted to start over somewhere else." That's horrifying, Nathan whispered, the weight of her words breaking through the last layer of his disguise. Alina studied him carefully. You're not just some random guest, are you? What did you say you do again? I'm a writer, Nathan admitted, finally dropping the insurance adjuster cover. I travel, collecting real stories. A spark flickered in Elena's tired eyes. A writer with a platform. She lowered her voice. Could you tell our story? Not just mine. All of ours. People deserve to know the truth behind the smiles that serve their dinner. Before Nathan could answer, the brake alarm buzzed. Elena stood up, brushing crumbs off her uniform. Think about it, okay? Someone has to speak up. Someone has to. She walked away, leaving Nathan alone as darkness slowly settled over the restaurant. Inside him, a storm was brewing. Not just anger, but a deep, piercing remorse. He had created Harvest Table to be the launchpad for people's dreams, and now it had become a spiritual prison for the very people he had once vowed to uplift. Nathan pulled out his phone and canceled his flight home, because what was happening at Harvest Table wasn't just the failure of one location. It was rot from the inside, and he wouldn't stop until he exposed it all. No matter how brutal the truth was, Nathan knew there was no turning back. 3 days later, he sat in a cramped hotel room, surrounded by notes, printed documents, and a wall-sized map dotted with red pins marking all 15 Harvest Table restaurants in the region. The room resembled a crime scene. Strings connecting, photos, scribbled arrows, and questions left unanswered. Over those 3 days, Nathan had visited 4 other locations under different disguises. At each one, he saw the same disturbing pattern. Overworked staff, disappearing tips, authoritarian managers ruling by fear, and a heavy, defeated atmosphere, as if the people had quietly given up. His phone buzzed. A text from Marlene Jenkins, his longtime executive assistant and the only person who knew about his undercover mission. Secure line. Call now. 2 minutes later, her familiar voice came through the speakerphone. I found something. Talk to me, Nathan said, pen ready. I did what you asked. Pulled all financial reports from the regional office without using official channels. You were right. There's a shadow system. Nathan pressed his pen so hard into the page it nearly tore. And give me details. Rick Sanders, regional manager for all 15 branches, is running 2 sets of books. One that goes to corporate and the real one. And he's not doing it alone. He's working with Paylex, the outsourced payroll company managing this region. Paylex? That's not one of our approved vendors. Exactly. They were added during last year's expansion. On paper, everything looked perfect. Competitive pricing, glowing references. But when I dug deeper, I found Paylex was incorporated just 3 weeks before bidding. All their references? Shell companies. Nathan's blood turned cold. How much are we talking? Just counting tip skimming and wage manipulation, the conservative estimate is $6 million over the past 18 months. $6 million. Stolen from my employees, Nathan said, his voice dropping to a chilling calm. The money's being funneled into offshore accounts. I'm still tracking the full flow, but Rick's living large. A new vacation home in Aspen, a yacht, and his wife suddenly sporting jewelry that costs more than her former annual salary. Nathan stood, pacing the tiny room, one hand pressed to his forehead. And what about the employee feedback system? Why didn't we catch any of this? We did, Marlene said grimly. But someone intercepted the reports. All complaints submitted through the direct HR line were marked resolved, without any actual investigation. Someone at corporate is protecting Rick. Nathan stopped mid-step. I haven't identified them yet. I need more time. How far does this go? A long pause. Then Marlene's voice came back, low but firm. I'm finding similar patterns in 2 other regions, different payroll vendors, same tactics. Nathan collapsed into the chair, heart heavy. This wasn't about one location or one corrupt manager anymore. It was a fully coordinated scheme. a cancer growing within the company he had built from the ground up. "I've scheduled a meeting with Sophia Chen," Marlene continued, internal auditor. She was the first to flag payroll discrepancies last year, but her report was buried. "Can we trust her?" "If there's anyone we can trust, it's Sophia. Get her on the secure line. I need to speak with her now." After the call, Nathan returned once again to Harvest's table. When Elena saw him, her face lit up with a rare, genuine warmth. Something precious in a place so weighed down. "The writer returns," she said playfully, though her eyes sparkled with something real this time. "There's more going on here than I ever imagined," Nathan admitted. "Elena, if you had proof, real proof, that something illegal was happening here, would you be willing to speak up?" Her smile vanished. "That's dangerous talk. What if you weren't alone? What if there were others standing with you?" Elena looked around the dining room. Her eyes landed on a petite waitress struggling with a heavy tray, a dishwasher with bandaged hands, and an elderly hostess who should have retired years ago. "For them, maybe," she whispered. "But the problem is proof. Everything's designed to leave no trace. What if someone helped you gather that proof?" Elena turned to face Nathan fully now. Her expression was serious, her eyes searching. "Who are you really?" Before Nathan could answer, a commotion erupted from the kitchen. A man stepped into the room. One Nathan recognized immediately from photos. Rick Sanders. No name tag, no uniform. Just an ice-cold gaze and the swagger of someone who believes he owns everything in sight. The entire restaurant shifted like someone had pressed fast forward on a panic button. Staff scattered, eyes wide, movements sharp with tension. Rick's gaze swept the room like a predator scanning for weakness. When he saw Nathan and Elena talking, his expression darkened. "That's him," Elena whispered, turning away. "He's the one running the trap." Rick called over the floor manager, whispered something, then shot a glance toward their table. "I have to go," Elena said quickly, standing up. "You should leave too. It's not safe anymore." She hurried off, leaving Nathan sitting alone, face to face at last, with the man who had turned his dream into a nightmare. What began as a quiet investigation had become a full-scale war against a deeply rooted system of exploitation, sophisticated and insidious like a slow-growing cancer. And Nathan knew firing a few bad actors wouldn't be enough. He had to dismantle the entire machine and rebuild it from the ground up, in alignment with the ideals he once started with. "Mr. Miller, right?" The floor manager blocked his path, voice laced with barely concealed threat. Nathan looked up, no longer hiding the cold steel in his eyes. The battle had officially begun. The manager leaned slightly toward Nathan's table, his tone somewhere between politeness and a veiled warning. "I understand you've been asking our staff some unusual questions." Nathan stayed in character, his expression calm, just casual conversation. "Elena, right? She's been very attentive. We pride ourselves on service here." The manager's smile was carved into his face, but his eyes stayed ice cold. "But we also expect our employees to remain focused. Long personal conversations can be distracting." Sugar on the blade, sugar on the blade. Nathan gave a small nod, his polite smile never wavering. "I understand. I wouldn't want to interrupt anyone's work." "Very good." The manager shot a quick glance toward Rick Sanders, watching from a distance, like a predator sizing up his prey, then walked off. "Oh shit. A drugstore. Perfect. God." Then walked off. Nathan resumed his meal in deliberate silence, chewing slowly as though nothing were amiss. Before leaving, he left behind a generous cash tip he knew Elena would never receive. A silent act of defiance. But instead of driving away, Nathan parked his rental in the far corner of the lot, turned off the engine, and waited in the dark. 2 hours later, the restaurant lights dimmed, and employees began trickling out. Elena was among the last. Shoulders slumped, as if carrying the... Nathan flashed his headlights once. She paused, hesitated, then approached cautiously. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly, tension in her voice. "Yes, 5 minutes, get in." Inside the silent car, Elena turned to face him directly. "The same grilled me for half an hour about you. Who are you really? No more pretending," Nathan said firmly. "I'm gathering evidence. Elena, I believe you and your co-workers are victims of systemic wage theft and fraud. I want to help, but I need people on the inside." "You with the labor board?" she asked, a flicker of hope in her voice. "No, but I have resources and influence." He handed her a burner phone. "I need documentation, photos comparing tip records to actual payouts, screenshots of altered schedules, copies of bonus agreements that were never fulfilled." Elena stared at the phone, torn between fear and responsibility. "If they catch me, I'll be fired. No warning. If you do this right, you won't be alone." Nathan handed her a sealed envelope. "Inside is a list of trusted employees, verified by our internal auditor, who are already helping me at other locations. Use this phone only because you had the courage to warn a complete stranger, and because I believe you still have something most people have lost: courage." Over the next 2 weeks, Nathan led a silent resistance. Maintaining his cover with occasional restaurant visits, he worked with Marlene and Sophia Chen to meticulously gather evidence. The burner phones became a whisper network of truth, each piece revealing another part of the fraud. Elena, with her sharp instincts and steady resolve, became the lead among a team of 6 staff members at her location, all secretly documenting the scheme. 12 other restaurants formed similar cells, quietly sending in photos, altered timesheets, vanishing tip logs, and rigged bonus criteria that no one ever had a chance of meeting. Meanwhile, Nathan used his CEO authority in the shadows, blocking Rick's fund transfers, ordering sudden compliance audits, quietly restricting access to financial systems. "He's starting to panic," Sophia reported during a late-night call. "He sent 3 urgent emails today about system errors." "Good," Nathan replied. "Keep the pressure on. Make it look like tech glitches or routine corporate audits. With what we've got now, we can build a case for nearly $8 million in fraud," Marlene added. "We've also identified 2 enablers inside headquarters." "What about Elena?" Nathan asked, concern tightening in his chest. "He's holding up, but Rick's getting suspicious. He's installed cameras in the break rooms, started random bag checks." That night, Nathan returned to the original branch. Elena emerged from the kitchen, thinner, eyes more sunken. But there was a fire in her that hadn't been there before. "You're putting yourself in danger," she whispered as she dropped off his appetizer. "I had to make sure you're okay." "Rick's losing it," she murmured, barely moving her lips. 3 meetings this week about loyalty and outside agitators. Yesterday, he fired Jessie just for checking her phone during shift. "We're almost there. Just a few more days," Nathan reassured her. "There's a rumor someone from corporate is visiting on Tuesday," she whispered. "Rick's freaking out, making us deep clean everything, memorize talking points about how happy we are." "Tuesday." Then Nathan nodded. When he paid the check, he slipped a small note into the receipt folder. "Be ready Tuesday. The trap's about to spring." He looked Lothario one day as he watched the town come to life. While the disappointment gnawed at Betty, Nathan Rodas and put on the suit he hadn't touched in weeks. Nathan Rodas, the founder of Harvest Table, had returned. "It's time to take back my company and set my people free," he said to his reflection. Then came the text from Sophia. "Warning, Rick's trying to fire Elena. Her system access was locked this morning." Nathan knew he was out of time. The final confrontation had to happen sooner than planned. Before Rick could silence the one person who had unknowingly sparked this entire investigation with 7 simple words: "This place is a trap." The next morning, Elena arrived for her shift with a rock in her stomach. The hostess gave her a knowing glance. "Rick's here early. He's looking for you." "Thanks," Elena whispered, fingers brushing the burner phone in her pocket. The evidence had been backed up to the cloud, but she still carried it, just in case. She barely made it to the locker room before the floor manager appeared. "Rick wants to see you," Rick Sanders was already seated behind his desk, a file folder open in front of him. His expensive watch glinted under the fluorescent lights, an elegant mask for something rotten to the core. "Elena, 5 years with the company," Rick began, his tone casual, almost friendly, but his eyes were cold, like a knife wrapped in silk. "Started at the downtown branch, requested a transfer here, always dependable, until recently." "I'm not sure what you mean, sir," Elena replied, her voice dry but steady as she tried to stay calm. Rick slowly pushed a printed sheet toward her. "You logged into the payroll system at midnight, pulled historical tip data. We monitor everything, Elena." Her throat tightened. I was just trying to understand the bonus metrics better, and I took some photos of schedules and coworkers' pay stubs to compare." Rick's smile vanished in an instant. "We know someone's been leaking information. Corporate is extremely concerned about potential internal espionage." "I don't know anything else." "Your termination has already been processed," Rick cut her off coldly. "Security will escort you out. And remember, you signed a confidentiality agreement. Breaching it comes with serious consequences." Just then, a knock on the door. The hostess poked her head in, pale-faced. "Sorry to interrupt, sir, but something's happened. Corporate leadership just arrived. They're demanding an all-staff meeting, immediately." Rick paled. That meeting was scheduled for next week. The mayor said it's urgent. "Staff is already gathering in the dining area." Rick shot to his feet. "We'll finish this later." As soon as he left, Elena pulled out the burner phone. A new message popped up. "Join the meeting, front row, trust me." The main dining area had been hastily rearranged, tables pushed aside, rows of chairs set up. Employees gathered, whispering nervously. At the front stood 3 people in sharp business attire, 2 women and a man, speaking quietly with their backs to the room. Elena slipped into the front row, heart pounding in her chest. Rick approached, trying to maintain composure. "Rick Sanders," he said smoothly, extending a hand toward the man who still had his back turned. "We weren't expecting you so soon, but it's a pleasure to have you here." Man turned, and Rick froze. Nathan Rodas, founder and CEO of Harvest Table. The face that had been hidden behind a disguise was now fully visible. His eyes sharp, unwavering. "Surprise inspection," Nathan said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. Or, more accurately, a reckoning. A wave of whispers swept the room. Elena sat frozen, staring at the man she once thought was just a stranger. "Mr. Miller." Nathan's eyes briefly met hers, filled with gratitude, then turned back to Rick. "For those who don't know me, I'm Nathan Rodas. 15 years ago, I founded Harvest Table with one simple mission: to create restaurants where both guests and employees would be treated like family." He stepped forward, his gaze cutting through the tension. 3 weeks ago, I heard something that kept me up at night. A trusted employee told a customer this place is a trap. So I decided to find out for myself. Nathan signaled to Marlene and Sophia, who opened their laptops and connected to the restaurant's display screen. What I discovered wasn't petty theft or minor fraud. It was theft of something far more precious. Dignity, labor, trust. Systematically stolen. Spreadsheets, photos, and charts lit up the screen. Employees gasped as they saw their own schedules, manipulated tip records, and phantom bonuses that had never been paid. $8.3 million, Nathan declared. That's how much has been stolen from employees in this region over the past 18 months. Rick jumped up and made a run for it, but 2 real security officers intercepted him. "Arrest warrants are already being processed for financial crimes," Nathan continued. "And as CEO, I've authorized full repayment of all stolen wages, with interest, to every affected employee." The room erupted in shocked voices. Elena sat motionless, tears in her eyes. Nathan raised his hands for silence. "This ends today, not just the wage theft, but the culture of fear that allowed it to happen." He walked over to Elena and extended his hand. "This woman, and dozens like her, risked everything to speak the truth. While I failed you as a founder, they showed the courage I should have had long ago." Elena slowly stood and took his hand. "Starting today," Nathan announced, "Elena will head our new employee advocacy division, reporting directly to me. No more buried complaints, no more silenced voices. The trap is broken." As police officers escorted Rick away in handcuffs, Nathan turned to Elena. "I'm sorry I lied to you, but your honesty and courage, when you thought I was just a stranger, saved the soul of this company." Elena, still in shock, managed to whisper, "Why did you listen?" "Because," Nathan said, his voice echoing through the now silent room, "real leaders never forget that without their people, they are nothing." 6 months later, Elena stood in the middle of the newly renovated harvest table. The space was brighter, warmer. New furniture provided comfort for both guests and staff. The kitchen gleamed with state-of-the-art equipment, but the biggest change wasn't physical. "New pay stubs are in." Jesse Mothy, the bartender who had once been fired and was now rehired, waved a thick stack of envelopes. Direct deposit hit too, with the transparency report attached. The staff gathered. No more cautious glances, only excitement and trust. Each envelope contained a transparent breakdown of hours worked, tips received, and a QR code linking to an internal transparency system where employees could review, respond, and protect their own rights. "I still can't believe we get health insurance for just 20 hours a week now," said Miguel, the longtime head chef, as he reviewed the new pay stub. "Just my daughter's asthma medication used to keep me up at night." Elena smiled gently, overwhelmed by emotion. She remembered clearly what Nathan had promised after the reckoning: a company-wide policy overhaul, reduced minimum hours for benefits, tip transparency through digital tracking, and, most significantly, a profit-sharing program that gave every employee real ownership in the restaurant's success. Her new title, Regional Director of Employee Advocacy, had once seemed impossibly daunting, but now not only was she thriving in the role, she was fueled by purpose. She had found herself in the work, building systems, protecting justice, and giving a voice back to those who had once been silenced. Her phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. "Still on for 7?" Since that day, Nathan had shed the distant, top-floor CEO persona. He disappeared from corporate meetings and instead appeared regularly at each branch as a teammate, washing dishes, bussing tables, even cooking on the line. It was how he reconnected with the heart of the business he once dreamed into existence. The final investigation had exposed fraud in 23 out of 38 harvest table locations. 11 managers and 3 corporate executives faced criminal charges. The financial toll was massive. Over $20 million, 0 cents in stolen wages repaid, plus emotional compensation awarded to hundreds of workers. "Elena!" a voice called from the entrance. She turned to see Sophia Chin, the internal auditor who had become one of her closest allies in this journey. "The national numbers just came in. You'll want to see this." Elena took the report, eyes widening as she read the data. For the first time since the scandal, overall company revenue hadn't just stabilized, it had grown by 12%. Employee turnover had plummeted from 62% to just 8%. Customer satisfaction scores hit an all-time high. "It's really working," Elena whispered. "Proves what some of us always knew," Sophia replied. "Treating people well isn't just the right thing to do, it's smart business." That evening, the restaurant reopened, but not to customers. It opened to the most important guests, the employees and their families. Children darted between tables adorned with fresh flowers. Parents, many of whom once couldn't afford to take time off for school meetings, now laughed together, sharing stories of renewed lives. Nathan arrived quietly, dressed casually, his young daughter riding on his shoulders. He made his way from table to table, greeting staff by name, recalling details of their lives, not for show, but because he genuinely cared. As dinner wound down, Nathan gently tapped his glass to get the room's attention. "I won't talk long," he smiled. "But I do want to say something important. 6 months ago, this company lost its way. We forgot that a restaurant isn't a brand or a balance sheet. It's people." He looked around the room, at the radiant faces, the reunited families, the laughter filling the air like living proof. Real success isn't measured in profit, though that's coming back stronger than ever. It's measured in families reconnected, dignity restored, and trust rebuilt. Nathan raised his glass. "To all of you who had the courage to stay and fight for something better, and especially to Elena, who taught a CEO what it means to lead with heart." Later, after the guests had gone, Nathan found Elena sitting alone in the same booth where he had first heard the 7 words that changed everything. "This place is a trap." He sat across from her. "Penny for your thoughts?" Elena looked around. The restaurant was no longer a place of fear. It was filled with light, warmth, and promise. "I was thinking about how trapped I used to feel, how hopeless it all seemed, and how many other places out there still feel like this used to. How many people are still stuck in the same kind of trap I once was." Nathan nodded, his voice quiet. "That's why next month we're launching the Harvest Table Foundation, using our story to push for industry-wide reform." He smiled. "And guess who's leading it?" Elena blinked. "Me, if you want it. No pressure. But you have a rare gift, Elena. You see systems other people overlook, and you have the courage to challenge them." Elena looked around the restaurant once more. What was once a symbol of exploitation had become a model for redemption and rebirth. Employee artwork adorned the walls. A collaboratively written mission statement emphasized community and mutual respect. The old tip jar had been replaced by a live digital display showing real-time tip distribution, transparent and fair. "From the trap to a launch pad," she whispered. "Exactly." From a quiet corner of the restaurant, Nathan Rhodes watched the company he'd once built for the wrong reasons finally become what it was always meant to be, a place of true joy, purpose, and people-first values. The journey had been painful, the cost had been high, but he knew now. Some traps, once broken, become the foundation of real freedom.